Imagine standing on a gravel shoulder in the middle of the West Texas night, wind like a slow breath across the scrub, stars so clean they seem to cut the sky, and then, out on the flat horizon, one single point of light rises. At first, it could be a distant lantern, a pilot's glow, the blink of a headlamp, but the point of light moves the wrong way. It hovers, it darts aside as if startled, it splits in two and then rejoins. It slips behind a low ridge where no road runs, only to appear seconds later, a half-mile to the left, as if the desert itself rearranged to accommodate it. Locals call them the Marfa Lights. Tourists call them magic. Skeptics call them headlights. No one, after more than a century of watching, has produced a single explanation that satisfies everyone. The story begins in the hush between day and night, when the land cools and the long heat of the desert relaxes into a breath that feels almost human. From a small, graveled pullout off US Route 67, people gather with thermoses and lawn chairs, pointing their cameras and their curiosity at a near-featureless stretch of land 2 miles to the east. The lights do not obey a schedule. Sometimes they do not appear at all. Other nights, they come in small armies, amber, white, green, moving like fish over the surface of the earth. What is most unnerving is how the lights behave. Witnesses describe them as alive. One moment, a single ball will hang, motionless, over an old runway marker. The next, it will leap with impossible speed along the horizon. They slide behind mountains and reappear from places where nothing visible could have passed. They will stop and wait as if curious about onlookers. They will perform delicate dances, circling, pulsing, and then vanish in a blink. There are accounts of the lights approaching observers until a respectful distance is kept, as though some unseen etiquette governs the exchange. To be in that gravel lot on a clear, windless night is to feel tiny before a kind of theater that requires no audience to be sublime. The lights of Marfa first entered the written record in the late 19th century, when settlers, cowboys, and travelers began to mention strange glows on the horizon. Early accounts are fragmentary. Little diary entries, passing lines in local newspapers. But even then, the reports shared the same odd character. Tiny points of light that moved without apparent cause, often at the edge of the Pinto Basin and the Chinati Mountains. Through the first half of the 20th century, the phenomenon lived mainly in local memory and oral retelling. It was only in the mid-century, as regional roads improved and curiosity grew, that the lights began drawing serious attention from people outside the county. By the 1950s and 60s, national newspapers and radio shows had picked up the story. Scientists and journalists alike made the trek out to Presidio County to see whether the Marfa Lights were a trick of perception, a local hoax, or something more unsettling. Observers carried notebooks, took long-exposure photographs, and later, as technology improved, set up telescopes and night vision equipment. The catalog of behaviors expanded: lights that split into twins, lights that flickered colors in quick succession, lights that seemed to respond to the shouts of startled onlookers. Pilots flying at low altitudes reported the same orbs from above. Ranchers swore they had seen the lights shine through the brush like eggs of light and then disappear into hollow gullies. When a strange phenomenon accumulates witnesses, it also accumulates interpretation. Theories about the Marfa Lights can be grouped, but not neatly contained. On one side sit the scientific explanations, those that try to translate the lights into physics and geography. The simplest, most persistent claim is that many sightings are misidentified car headlights. From certain vantage points and under particular atmospheric conditions, beams from distant vehicles on US Route 67 or other highways can refract through layers of air and appear to float above the desert floor. The road network around Marfa rises and falls. A driver far off the line of sight can be seen as a hovering point of light when temperature gradients bend light in a mirage effect. Another scientific hypothesis points to geological activity. West Texas is a place of faults and exposed bedrock. And some researchers have proposed that piezoelectric effects, electrical discharges produced when quartz-rich rocks are stressed by tectonic forces, could ionize the air and produce luminous phenomena. In this view, seismic strain beneath the surface generates tiny plasma discharges that flicker like flames, modulated by the materials in the soil and the presence of subterranean fluids. It is a compelling, if technically complex, idea. The land itself becomes an instrument, playing light where stress concentrates. Proponents point out that other luminous phenomena around the world, will-o'-the-wisps over peak bogs, earthquake lights in seismically active regions, share similar puzzling features. A third set of material explanations revolves around atmospheric optics. Temperature inversions, pockets of warm air trapped under cold layers, and dust or humidity differences can create mirages that bend and intensify distant light sources. Great flat expanses, like the Chihuahuan Desert, are ideal theaters for such refraction. When air conditions are right, a scattered beam of light from a distant truck, an oil rig on the horizon, or even a farm lantern can be magnified into a discrete moving point. These theories have the virtue of testability. On nights when the weather and traffic conditions are logged, investigators can correlate sightings with vehicle schedules and thermodynamic profiles of the atmosphere. But the Marfa Lights refuse to be reduced only to headlight trails or refraction maps. Researchers who set up observing stations have sometimes watched lights that appear to react in ways impossible for distant headlights to emulate. A light might hover behind a ridge, then step into plain sight on the other side of a ravine where no road runs. Telescopic observation has sometimes revealed no corresponding heat signature, no moving silhouette, and no mechanical noise. At other times, careful triangulation has traced certain lights back to visible sources: a car that rounds a bend, a rancher's lantern, an airplane. The variability is maddening. The phenomenon sometimes behaves like an optical trick and sometimes like a physical object. It is this very ambiguity that has fed a parallel stream of supernatural and folkloric explanations. Local lore speaks in older, richer voices. Some claim the lights are the spirits of Apache scouts, still moving the land where they once roamed. Others say the orbs are the souls of lost travelers, caught between worlds after the desert claimed them when storms lost men in the sand. A persistent strand of legend ties the lights to Spanish missionaries or bandits from the 19th century, ghostly campfires rekindled by night. At times, the lights acquire moral valence, seen as omens, warnings, or signs that those who trespass at night should not be stayed by curiosity. Artists and mystics have a tenderness for the Marfa Lights. They arrive with cameras and lanterns and make pilgrimages that are part pilgrimage, part secular ritual. The lights have become emblematic of Marfa itself, a small town that has seen an influx of artists since the late 20th century. That cultural overlay complicates what outsiders see. In a town where the art world and desert mysticism tangle, the lights are at once commodity and mystery, backdrop and oracle. Local businesses sell postcards with soft red orbs printed above the horizon. The viewing area gets crowded during summer nights. In that commercialization, some claim authenticity is lost. Others say the town simply recognizes a phenomenon that always invited attention. Across decades, a handful of systematic investigations have tried to tidy the record. Amateur teams and academic groups have used spectrometers, all-sky cameras, and radio equipment to try to capture the lights in multiple wavelengths. In many cases, instruments correlate the bright dots with distant car headlights or rancher lights when traffic patterns are recorded. Sometimes radio receivers pick up transmissions from CB radios or nearby repeaters, suggesting a terrestrial cause. Yet at times, no correlation is found. Night vision and thermal cameras occasionally detect no heat where the naked eye sees light. Slow-motion video sometimes displays a light jumping a distance that no car could cover without producing a blur. Those are the nights that make the story. The interplay of evidence and mystery has yielded strong opinions on all sides. Skeptics, scientists who study perception and optics, argue that the simplest explanation is often the correct one. Human vision evolved to notice small points of light. That sensitivity makes observers susceptible to illusion. Expectation plays a role. When people gather hoping to see something uncanny, they interpret ambiguous stimuli as confirmation. A faint headlight refracted by a thermal duct becomes a hovering ghost because the mind wants it so. Believers push back with personal narratives that resist easy reduction. Rancher testimonies are blunt and persistent. Men who have watched the desert for a lifetime insist the lights are not vehicle reflections. One old-timer, in countless retellings, said he saw a light stop at the lip of a wash, as if examining his fence, then move on without ever touching the ground. Another recounted a time a light drew near to a group of teenagers, paused, and then darted away when one of them made a cross sign. These are not data points in a laboratory. They are lived experiences, weighted by the context of a place that is spare and old. There is a deeper question here beyond the mechanics of light. Why do certain places acquire strange reputations and keep them? Landscape has memory. Where roads curve, where ranges meet desert, where human history layers on geological time, the mind reads pattern into place. The Marfa Lights sit at a conjunction of human routes: cattle drives, mining paths, migration trails, and now tourist highways. Each layer contributes a strand to the story. When an unexpected light appears, the cultural lodestone of story draws it into legend. The lights may be simple in cause, but the consequences, folkloric, economic, spiritual, are anything but. To watch the Marfa Lights is to participate in a ritual as much as an observation. Strangers sit shoulder to shoulder on a gravel lot beneath a bowl of stars, trading flashlights, gossip, and thermos coffee. Someone points, and for a moment, the crowd is united in attention. Cameras click. When a light appears to the right of a distant mountain, a hush falls. In those moments, the phenomenon is less of a mystery to be solved than a suspense to be shared. The lights give people a story to tell on the way home, a small communal thrill against the weight of night. Science will keep chipping away. Observatories, amateur pluralities, and curious physicists will test, triangulate, and publish. More often than not, under systems of measurement and cross-checking, parts of the phenomenon will fall away into mundane categories. Headlights will be matched. Mirage indices will be calculated. Piezoelectric models will be tested against seismic catalogs. But it seems likely that some fraction of the sightings will remain stubbornly unallocated, the raw material of folklore. And perhaps that is part of the real lure. Some phenomena are not merely puzzles to be solved, but thresholds that invite storytelling. The Marfa Lights do more than illuminate a desert ridge. They illuminate the human habit of wonder. They remind us that even in a world defined by satellite maps and traffic cams, a line of light across a dark horizon can still make strangers stop their cars, step out, and listen to the night. When the lights rise, it is easy to imagine older watchers doing the same. Cowboys pausing by campfires, native scouts leaning on rosemary bushes, Spanish riders shading their eyes. There is continuity in attention that outlives explanation. Whether the lights are the physics of air and rock, the reflection of distant wheels, or something stranger that refuses the vocabulary of the laboratory, they keep asking a simple human question: what lies beyond the comfortable map of our knowledge? On a wide Texas night, with stars arranging themselves like a pinned map, and with wind that smells faintly of creosote and dust, the Marfa Lights call, and many will answer. Cameras will record, notebooks will fill, and theories will multiply. The desert will keep its own counsel. And under that black bowl of world, the small orbs will rise and fall, sometimes explained, sometimes not, always insisting on being seen.